All right, we're going to get started. I hope you enjoyed that little bit of an interlude music. I always love starting the Checkbox webinars with a bit of lo-fi. Guys, today on this episode, this webinar of Checkbox, really excited to share with you that we don't have a guest for once, but instead you have old me, Evan, taking you through a product demonstration of the Checkbox platform with a focus on how we automate legal workflows. Now, I know some of you may come from areas outside of legal. I'm sure you'll still get a lot of value out of this, but this webinar is targeted at the legal folk. So with that, let's dive in. So for those of you who have never met me before, as I mentioned, my name is Evan Wong. I am the co-founder and CEO of Checkbox. And what that means is I've had the privilege of seeing a software company being built from the ground up, really going through the hard yards, and on the other side, being able to work with amazing customers across the globe. Probably now more than 100 automation projects that I've been involved in with no code at the center of that strategy for not just law firms, but your corporate legal departments, your universities, your not-for-profits, and even government. So I would love to kind of share some of my experiences with you today. If you've never heard of Checkbox before, we are a global company. We work with all of these amazing customers across all these different jurisdictions and verticals. And really what they engage Checkbox for is for our platform, which we coin EPA, Expert Process Automation, right? And today's session is not about slides. It's about jumping into the actual platform and spending all of our time there. But I did want to start with, what is Checkbox? Because it can be quite tricky in the market sometimes to put technologies in different sort of buckets and categorization. And so we call ourselves EPA. How do you actually empower the experts who understand the process, the knowledge, who own the processes, the pain points, to go and build their own automation tools to solve their problems without having to engage IT or have an IT background? Now, in the context of legal, right, customers come to us because, well, I don't think anyone's going to debate the fact that there is an increased amount of workload that legal departments constantly see. And we saw this before the pandemic, right? So prior, in 2019, more than 90% saw that their workloads were going to increase. Why? Well, business grows, regulatory environments become more complex. But what's interesting is the headcount or the resources allocated to serve that increasing workload is just not there. In fact, even with COVID and the pandemic over the past few months, we've seen some of those resources flatten and even reduce. And what that ultimately leads to is this situation here. We've got all these business users who are trying to access services from legal, but they result in the legal chokehold. And ultimately, this bottleneck leads to really three underlying issues, right? You have all of the lawyers or attorneys spending their time on low risk, high volume work. I shouldn't say all of their time, a big part of their time on this low risk, high volume work, which is taking them away from the more complex strategic work where they're needed. And then on top of that, when you have this bottleneck effect, you have people out in the business sort of engaging with legal activities that aren't actually monitored or visible or controlled by the legal team. And that introduces new legal risk into the organization. And the last one is really a challenge of scale. If we're not going to be able to increase our headcount, if we're not able to spend more money on outside counsel, or perhaps there's just general pressure from the CFO to constantly reduce those costs, how are we going to scale the delivery of our legal services for today and for the future as business becomes more and more complex, more and more volatile? I'm sure a lot of people ask these questions, and often, you might think the first solution is, well, how would I go to IT? How would I go to my innovation teams and see if they have a solution to solve my problem? But what we then find is we end up in the IT queue. IT themselves are a bottleneck for digital transformation, and we never really make it to the top of their priority list. And so that's really why we built Checkbox. It's a no-code platform that empowers the business in terms of, say, the legal department, to be able to use drag and drop without coding, without much of an IT background at all, to be able to build your own business applications, to be able to improve the way services are delivered in just a matter of days, not weeks, not months, not years, but literally being able to spin these up in a matter of days. And we'll see this very soon, but Checkbox is really made up of these key components here. We've got document automation that's being tied together with workflow automation, forms automation, decision tree, data management, and dashboards. And the beautiful thing is that all of this is wrapped on a single no-code platform. You don't have to integrate your document management, your document generation system with your workflow system, with your dashboards. All of that is centralized on a single platform, and you do it all without coding. I did promise you most of the time we spent on demos, so there's only one more slide to share with you, which is really the use cases. The key use cases that Checkbox kind of solves are intake and triage. So how do you capture information efficiently in a centralized way through a digital front door? How do you triage that to the right legal resources or self-help tools? How do you create self-service advice around things like, I don't know, HR policy, WH&S, delegations of authority? If you're a publicly listed company, when can we actually trade our shares? How much? In what windows? What approval processes are required? We have approval workflows like document execution, being able to sign off on the document before it goes off for final execution on behalf of the organization. And of course, our favorite in the legal department and as law firms is document generation, creating agreements, from as simple as NDAs, yes, SOWs, yes, but we've also seen people automate complex documents right up to your MSAs, justification notes, letters. They don't even have to be agreements. And with that, I want to show you the platform. So how do we do all of this, I guess, without coding? So we'll jump in to a scenario. I want you to kind of like imagine for a moment that you are a sales rep, right? You're a sales rep for your organization. You're selling product, you're selling services. You need to engage the legal team to pull together the right agreements to do business. So previously you may, phone up legal or send them an email or pull a template and bastardize it off the internet portal. But take this as an experience. You go to a centralized sort of a portal for legal services. You might even access this through, say, your Microsoft Teams interface, right? You jump into this, and we'll go and hit start. And you'll notice here that we're taking the business user, or perhaps if you're a law firm, say your client, you're taking the business user through what is effectively like a menu for legal services. We have, in this case, let me zoom in a little bit. We've got, are you looking for a contract? Are you looking to execute a contract? Are you looking for perhaps a notifiable data breach incident? So on and so forth, right? There's a few different ones here, right? And the idea is that all of these options are, of course, customizable, right? This is just an example. The whole point of no code is you can configure this to match your organization's services, the service catalog, as well as your workflow. On the right-hand side, we have tooltips that allow you to build in definitions and links to help users who may not be experts in the process to walk through the actual journey. So in this case, let's use a very, I know it's an overused example, but it works. I'm going to show you how we're going to generate an NDA. And if you want to see more than NDA, you can reach out to me after this webinar, after this video, and I can show you, of course, other use cases as well. But for today, let's stick with the NDA. We'll jump through, and you can see here it's asking, are you looking to review one or draft one? And I'll go say, I want to draft one. I've got all these different options for me. In this case, let's say NDA, as I mentioned. I'll hit next. Now, Checkbox knows that an NDA is a low-risk document that the business should be able to self-serve. We shouldn't really involve the legal team unless there's some sort of escalation point. So in this case, Checkbox redirects the business user to the NDA tool, another automated Checkbox app. We'll hit start. And you can see here, there's different stages that we'll jump through. We're going to go through the counterparty information first. Then we're going to move on to the agreement details before then generating the document and sending it through for e-signature. So what's really cool about Checkbox as well is that we've got forms, but these forms are smart. They're smart because they're dynamic. They react to inputs, but they also integrate with other systems. They can integrate with, say, Salesforce, your vendor data, your CRM, your Active Directory. We can pull in information of suppliers, employees, counterparties into these forms. In this case, what I've done is I've integrated this form with the Australian Business Register. What that means is that it's a government register sitting externally from our system. But as I type in, let's say it's Coca-Cola that I'm contracting with, right? If I say Coca-Cola, you'll notice that it makes a live API call and it finds the best match companies for Coke. You can see there's the Coca-Cola company, there's Amatil, and recently they've gone in and become, there it is, Euro-Pacific Partners, right? This is not in Checkbox. This is actually fed into Checkbox from that third-party government system. And in this case, let's say we're contracting with the Coca-Cola company, and upon selecting it, you can see the rest of the forms are filled in. I didn't have to go and manually do an ABN lookup externally. I could just do it within the form, and it even populates the rest of the data for me. Okay, so that's pretty handy. Now, Coca-Cola Company Pty Ltd is a bit of a mouthful, especially when referencing them constantly in agreement. So let's just call this Coca-Cola. Or in fact, let's just call them Coke. Good old Coke. So we're going to counterpart it with Coke. And let's say that on Coke's end, we're going to be working with, I don't know, like running out of creativity here. I'm just going to say John Sanders is a random name that I've come up with. So John Sanders from Coke's going to be the counterparty for this. And you can see that we have hover tips as well. So in the case where you don't want to have those sort of accordion style drop-down tips, that's maybe a little bit too intrusive, you can even just weave in hover tips. In this case, it's telling us what a duly authorized rep is. All right, John, you're going to sign an agreement with me. So we're going to put just my email in there with the John indicator, so it doesn't fly off to an actual John somewhere. And we'll go next. You'll see here that it's now asking for the agreement details. Okay. And in this case, I can have different form fields like date fields. I can even select the purpose from a dropdown. Right. And dropdowns are handy because if you have common, purposes, then that keeps, your contracts relatively controlled in terms of the content, but also from a data perspective, it's going to be a lot more structured. But of course, not all documents can be squeezed into these categories. So you can build in other, right? So if you select other, you can see you can actually manually type in the purpose instead, right? But let's go and stick with just one of these pre-filled options. Let's go and say it's a pending media release with Coke. And you can build smarts into Checkbox as well, right? So it's not just like these linear forms. Let's say that, whilst an NDA is a simple document, if the contract value was over a certain threshold, in this case, let's make it up. Let's say it's $50 million. Yeah, an NDA is a simple low-risk document, but when it's a 50 million transaction, you probably want someone to review the document. So in this case, you can build in these sort of delegations of authority or these trigger points to escalate the workflow to someone else to approve, whether that's the finance team, legal team, etc. In this case, let me show what happens, right? It's a $50 million NDA transaction. I'll go next. And you'll notice that legal review is required because of this being of significant financial value. When I click next, this will workflow from the salesperson through to the legal team to continue the workflow. But let me go back to show you that the smarts actually do work. So let's go and reduce this down to say a $5,000 transaction with maybe a PR company. We can even disclose some trade secrets here. So maybe we can say, the secret behind the great taste of Coke, let's say, right? And we'll go next. And you'll notice that the next screen is actually different now. It's no longer the escalation. It is instead a transcript, an audit trail of all the responses and questions that I've gone through. And if I uploaded any documents or workflowed it to any other person, all of those records would appear here as well. this is a really great place to track all the data to create an audit trail for every transaction. If I'm happy with this, I'm going to go and hit submit. And you can see within a second, it's generated the actual document, the NDA between Checkbox and Coke. You can see there's the date of today. You can see here as well that the purpose of the agreement, which is pending media release, has been inserted. And I've purposely highlighted this yellow to show you the dynamic content. Of course, in reality, it wouldn't come out with the yellow. You can also see that the headers and footers also have dynamic content. It's inserted the Coca-Cola company into the footer. And there's the trade secret clause I've also inserted because we said that trade secrets would be involved. And really, you have the entire document with all the dynamic content, the numbering, the dynamic indentation, all of that has been adjusted in Checkbox. You even have John Sanders, the made-up person that I came up with, representing Coca-Cola, and Evan representing Checkbox. And I can go and download this document as a PDF or a Word document. But if I'm honestly happy with it, we can even go further than that. We can hit next. And by hitting next, we don't actually need to download the document, log into eSignature portal, upload the document, set up the signature tags, and then send them off. Checkbox automatically takes the document that you've just created and it sends it seamlessly into eSignature, which I'll show you right here. You can see here in my emails just received an email from DocuSign, right? And it's between, yes, the Coca-Cola company and Checkbox. You can see that I can review the document, and the document that we just looked at together a moment ago has been loaded into the DocuSign platform. We integrate with other platforms as well, by the way, not just DocuSign. But the example here is DocuSign. And you can see that there's John Sanders filled in, Evan Wong, today's date. It's all been populated. All I need to do is literally hit a button and it's signed, right? What's really cool as well is that we integrate with other systems, whether that is a matter management system, a document management system, Salesforce as an example, right? In this case, I'm going to use Zakia, our good friends over there, which is a matter management system. And you can see that whatever NDA request that has been made, all of the data has flowed through and created a matter within the matter management system, right? There it is, an NDA for Coke. It's been initialized by Evan, right? It's an NDA rather than other document types that may exist. And it's even got some of the metadata that's a bit more freeform, like the contract value being 5,000 and it's a pending media release with Coke. So you can see the power in being able to sort of save a lot of the efficiencies in data entry between systems because you're effectively automating the intake, the triage, the work being done, and the actual tracking of the data and the work, not just in Checkbox, but across all of your entire tech stack. Now, before I kind of jump further, I just want to let you guys know there's quite a few people on this webinar actually. If you guys have questions, as I'm sure you would, if you have questions, feel free to throw them into the question or the chat box, and I'll answer them as we go. Okay, so you can start kind of throwing your questions in now, and I'm happy to answer them. But what I want to move on to next is showing you some of the dashboarding, and then of course how you build some of the experiences that we just saw without coding. All right. So in terms of dashboarding, let's go with that first. Everything that you capture in Checkbox is visualized on these custom dashboards. You can configure these without code again to capture and display whatever you like. So in this context, I've decided that I want to know what are the common legal requests that come through this front door. And I can see contracts are very popular, of course. Second most popular is document execution, so on and so forth. But also I can drill down further into specific use cases. So here I've got the self-service NDA, and I'm particularly interested in the relationship between trade secrets being involved and the purpose. And so here I can see that, okay, there's a weird a correlation between trade secrets and general business discussions, right? But you can really build whatever sort of metrics you want out of Checkbox here. And you can even have, trends against time. So we see sort of maybe a peak in contract requests over on the 11th of October, right? Maybe there was a project and we had to send out a lot of NDAs, right? And all of this is customized again with our code. Like if I click into here to show you how it's done, right? You just basically set what you actually care about. Like, are we caring about the contract type? Are we looking to, map this against, say, the I don't know, the owners as an example, right? And this will basically change the graph, right? As you can see there. You can even apply filters and time ranges and all sorts of stuff to get pretty granular in the way that you report off the data that comes into Checkbox. Often people always ask me as well, everything that you do, once the documents are created, where are they stored? We have sort of these repositories of every single interaction that comes through Checkbox. So you can see here, this is the Coke example that I just went through with you guys. You can see the e-signature has been sent through, right? Because Evan, me, clicked on the DocuSign envelope, you can see that the status has been delivered, whereas it's only been sent to John, a fake person in email. And you can go in and access the previously generated documents and audit trail that you saw before. What's also really cool is that, I'll show you one more really quick dashboard here. In the context of risk and compliance, you can obviously track different risk levels and things like that, but you can also track SLAs and statuses. So you can see things like whether there was a breach involved in an incident, what the risk levels were, and the time taken for resolution as well. And if I were to apply this in, say, a legal context, this could also be, are we at the drafting stage, the negotiation stage, the signature stage? Is it sitting with Bob or Sally or Jessica? And, how long have they actually sat on that stage for? So all of this, again, can be customized. All right. So the very last thing I'll show you, probably the fun part, it's fun so far, but this is even the more fun part, is the actual drag and drop studio. Cool. And I see some questions coming in, so I will get to them right after this. So again, if you have any questions, you have the benefit of seeing this live, feel free to shoot them through. Let me quickly show you how everything that we just saw was built without coding, just drag and drop. No technical knowledge. Most of our users are in fact just lawyers, HR professionals, business analysts, right? So this is the drag and drop studio. We have all these different components. And to introduce a new screen, a new piece of content into our application, it's really as easy as taking, let's say, a yes/no block, dragging it in, right? And with that yes/no block, introducing what we want. So in this case, let's say we're introducing a new control. We'll call it the employee test. And you can only use this tool if you're an employee. So we can say, are you an employee, let's say, of Checkbox, right? We can go and add a definition. So we can say definition of employee. And we can just say something like it does not include independent contractors. Okay. Brilliant. So if you're an employee of Checkbox, then we will let you use this tool. We'll take you to the start of the tool with the green dot, the yes button. But if you're not an employee of Checkbox, what we'll do is we'll take you to the end of the workflow. We'll connect you up to the end. And in the end, we're going to make it a little bit more useful. We'll say alternative tool. And we'll go and say, please use this tool instead for, let's say, contractors, right? And we can go and link the word tool to like literally another Checkbox tool, right? So we'll just link the Checkbox website there, checkbox.ai. And really that's it. If I go and reconnect the start screen, right? And I hit the preview button, which will run the application, you'll see there is the employee test. Are you an employee of Checkbox? There's a definition of employee. If I click no, it will take me to the alternative tool landing page where I can literally click and be linked out to another tool. I can go back and show you that if I click yes, the decision tree is going to take me to that starting sort of menu of services that we saw before. So you can see how fast and rapid it is to actually build new content into the application. It's very easy to do so. And I might just quickly jump to the question here, which is, can documents be saved to other storage systems or only in the Zakia repository? The answer is it can be saved to other systems. So we've integrated with other common DMSs like iManage or NetDocuments. And often there are many different ways you can do that. One simple way is Checkbox has this email component that literally just allows you to build an email. And by attaching the documents that you create and sending it into a unique folder within those document management systems, you can literally even avoid an integration project and just send those documents straight into the file. So that's quite powerful. Otherwise, we do have a JavaScript component as well that allows you to upload script that makes live API calls both out, pushing documents and data, and in, pulling documents and data. And that literally just hooks up into the workflow as well. So when you pass this particular block in the workflow, executes the code, obviously does the integration. More questions. All right, the next one is regarding the NDA agreement or MSA contracts, could you please show how the platform handles multiple client-led revisions prior to execution? All right, that's a whole another use case. So we have a use case that we like to show, which is the document execution workflow, which takes a version of a document that may or may not be created in Checkbox. It might come from just like a counterparty. And we move it through the different stage gates of an approval, through different iterations, and facilitate comments between the parties as well. We've only got literally 2 minutes left, so I'm unable to show you that now. But if you are interested in that use case, then feel free to reach out to me after this. I'll put up my contact details in a moment, and we can go through that use case together. Okay. I think that's all the questions for now, and we have only 2 minutes left. So the last thing I'll say is that obviously with the short amount of time that we had today, I could only show you very simple sort of like building experiences. Checkbox, where it really shines, is being able to maintain this level of simplicity for even more complex, more complicated logic and scenarios. And again, I don't really have the time to show you today. So if you really want to, kick the can and really test the limitations of Checkbox and really challenge exactly how easy is it, because we do like to say that we are the easiest tool in the market. How easy is it to do more complex stuff? Then I sort of recommend you to reach out to our team, and we're more than happy to show you exactly how we deal with more complexity. So on that note, I do want to invite you to reach out to me if you want to learn more, or to make it super easy for you. What I'll do is I'll launch this poll. I'm not sure if it should have just come through. And this will just make it easy. Because you've registered for the webinar, if you hit the yes button, then I will get one of our legal tech experts, our consultants in-house. We don't charge, like we make our money off license fees, right? So we don't charge for these types of sessions. That's not our game. But if you want to speak to one of our legal tech experts, just hit the yes button on the poll. We'll reach out to you and we can talk more about Checkbox, more about no code, more about legal automation, answer any other questions you have about features, the product, or even use cases. Or you can email info@checkbox.ai if you want to sort of paint out the picture of exactly your own unique situation as well. And I can see that everyone's voted yes and no one's voted no. So thank you so much for your interest. I really appreciate that. And I think there are just a quick question as well here, which I'll just wrap up on. So the reporting is super insightful. One, are you able to secure time? I think that's secure time, the dashboards. And two, can you send elsewhere to other dashboarding tools like Power BI? So the answer is yes. I think before I showed you the time taken for things to be completed. We also stamped the start time and the end time. So all of that is tracked in our dashboards. And yes, we can directly make a feed out to Power BI because we understand that Checkbox may not be your centralized data source of truth. We do in fact export data out as a CSV or build a direct feed into Power BI, which we've done before. Awesome. Well, we're just past the hour now. I want to be respectful of your time, and I want to thank you again so much for attending the webinar with me today. Again, please reach out if you want to learn more. But thank you already for the people who have expressed interest. Stay in touch, and we hope to see you at the next webinar. Thanks, everyone.